To the Planning Commission. Establishment of quorum. We have 5 of 8. Alice, will you lead us in an invocation, please?
Sure.
Please stand.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the traveler mercies we've received getting here safely. We ask that you will be with us to get home safely, and that everything we do, think, and say will be for the betterment of the county. In your name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On adoption of the agenda, I would like to make one minor change. I want to hear, under old business, item number 3, then number 2. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Unanimous, 5 of 8. Approval of minutes, October 19th. Move to approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. October 26th minutes, regular meeting. Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Have a first and a second. Let's vote. Unanimous. Public comment.
Yes, sir. Tonight we have 4 citizens signed up to speak. The first is David Ball, followed by Paul Barlow.
Good evening, David Ball, District 3. I know that you've been dealing a lot with this issue about the gold mine, and what I'd like to say is that there are a number of federal and state organizations that deal with this type of activity, that they regulate, govern, and control, and Virginia has the most comprehensive mining regulations, as well as the most comprehensive mining oversight organization. And I would say, I know that David Spears works there or had worked there, but there is a vast resource at that facility of geologists that understand and deal with these type of issues. I think it's the type of organization that the county should be relying on to help them formulate policy, to look at dealing with the issue of this mining that goes on in the county. And I think that's an area where a lot of focus should go. They have a great resource library. They have a lot of great experts. Knowing that I am a certified general mineral miner and a former MSHA safety trainer, I can tell you that with all the state and federal organizations, there's a wealth of knowledge to help you understand exactly what needs to go on in dealing with this type of development in the county. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. What did you say the name of the organization was?
In Charlottesville?
Oh, you said we should be working with them. What was the name of the organization?
Well, you've got United States Geological Survey, you've got Mineral Management Agency, you've got a number of other federal agencies. These are all organizations that are out there Most of them are located here in Virginia, either up in Northern Virginia, Reston, Arlington, different locations. You have DMME, which is located in Charlottesville. So you have, here in the state, you have access to a great wealth of resources.
Okay, thank you.
Paul Barlow, followed by Kenda Hahnemann.
Good evening. Paul Barlow, District 5. I'd like to address the considered questionnaire that's going to be discussed for the core sampling. At the last meeting, the experts here couldn't answer many of the questions regarding Aston Bay's activities because none of them had actually visited the site. They quoted standard core drilling practices, but couldn't confirm what had actually occurred at the site. Who's to say Aston Bay did everything right out there? Apparently in Virginia, core sampling is unregulated, but in other states it's highly regulated, and they have their reasons. At the last meeting, a question was posed to a geologist. Quote, is core drilling likely to have an impact on private wells? His answer was, the drilling itself, they're pumping water into the ground, clean water into the ground. The question of where that water came from is a separate question. So, did they truck the water in? Was it in fact clean? Nobody knows, because nobody wants to talk to Aston Bay about anything, it seems. Other things that need answering are, did they use drilling additives, such as mud? That's a mining term for drilling additives. And if they use mud or drilling additives, what were they? Did those additives meet the National Science Foundation and American National Standard Institute standards that establish minimum health effects requirements for chemical contaminants and impurities that are directly imparted into drinking water? Nobody knows, because it's like the Wild West over there. As I mentioned, other states highly regulate exploratory core drilling. Minnesota, for example, they regulate the layout and housekeeping of the core drilling site, the drilling practices in wetlands. They require an operations plan to be submitted and approved. They also regulate the drill site reparation and the reclaiming of it. They also regulate hole abandonment. Now, last time we were in here, one of the geologists said, oh yeah, they're supposed to fill the holes a certain way, but apparently we had boots on the ground out there, and she said no, they didn't, and one of the holes wasn't even filled. They also regulate petroleum products management, and they regulate the drilling fluids and additives to see if they meet the NSI, ASNI standards. So in many cases, they use a lot more than just water in these core drilling operations.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Kenda Hahnemann, followed by Joshua C.
Good evening. Kenda Hahnemann from District 5. Thank you for listening to my comment tonight on the gold-related issues. I appreciate your possible changes to zoning, cultural zones. That is an important first step. Now that you've heard from some governmental experts, we request that you broaden your research to hear from national organizations with experience in gold mining's effects on communities and their environment. I'm aware that the county received earthworks input from Senior Policy Counsel Aaron Mensis stating, and I quote, only after the county resolves Aston Bay's violations notices and VADQ determines whether they or future proposed activities may require a relevant state permit should Buckingham consider any proposed zoning amendments or a special use permit for further mineral activities? Under no circumstances should Buckingham County allow this activity by right. It is prohibited. Buckingham County zones this area is A1 for agricultural uses. These kinds of exploratory mining activities at least require a SUP, may also require a change in zoning district to light or heavy industrial. Aston Bay drilled at least 23 holes to depths ranging from 300 to 400 feet over approximately 4 months. I'm not sure, that may be 4 years, without authorization. This prohibited activity violated Buckingham County zoning ordinance and deserves enforcement. Article 6 of the zoning ordinance allows the county to assess daily violations up to $2,500. Jim Branch and Paul Barlow spent 2 days and their own money to visit and investigate the South Carolina town of Kershaw with the Hale mine and the nearby Superfund Brewer mine site. They took many photos and are producing a presentation on what they found. Wouldn't it behoove Buckingham County to do the same before taking any action that could enable new mining for polymetallic elements and gold here? Regarding the questionnaire topic, do you plan to clearly state on it that core drilling
Thank you, ma'am.
is not allowed for
Thank you, ma'am.
anything that is not listed?
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is up.
Yes,
Thank you.
I was almost finished with my.
I'm
Thank-
sorry. Your time is up.
I don't think you're sorry, sir.
Joshua C.
Good evening. I'm Joshua C. I've lived here in the county all of my 34 years. I have a degree in geosciences from Virginia Tech, and I'm also would be considered the responsible person in charge of the core drilling for Aston Bay. I was employed with them for about a year's time, so I oversaw all of the operations out at the property in question. It is my, I should also, I was just a contractor for them. I'm not a full-time salaried employee or anything, and as thus, I'm not beholden to Aston Bay in any way. In fact, that's part of the work that we do. It's almost a requirement of my work that I am unbiased in the scientific research that I do for them. It's important that that someone unbiased does this research so as to not make a prospect look better than it really is, right? I guess just on that regard, I'd like to echo what Mr. Ball said, that the proposal for a special use permit for core drilling would be very bad for business for such a place where mining has employed quite a great many people over the years. And I should also note that in terms of mineral exploration is just a precursor step for the mining industry. We're tangentially related to mining in that we as exploration geologists hardly ever expect to actually take a project to production. These things can go on for decades and decades, and we do it all over the world. Just to seek out new resources, and the vast majority of those resources are never exploited. So I'd like to bring that to everyone's attention. And
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
I now will read 2 emails that were received for public comment, and then we will have 6 voice messages that were left for public comment as well. To the Buckingham County Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors, my name is David Quillen and I live in Northwest Buckingham County, District 5. Over 40 years ago, I escaped from the crowded, noisy, and dirty city to this beautiful rural area that I will always call home. I, along with my many neighbors, now found this find this healthy and peaceful landscape threatened by the illegal activities of a Canadian gold exploration company and the prospect of an environmentally disastrous open-pit gold mine. Fortunately for us, the Commission and Supervisors had the foresight to protect our rural way of life by way of the carefully crafted comprehensive plan and the purpose statement for zoning District A1. The actions that you took in the past will ensure that our healthy and peaceful landscape will survive for future generations to come. The next step is obvious. Mining and quarrying should be removed from the special use permit section of zoning District A1, as it is a gross contradiction to the intent of the comprehensive plan and the purpose statement for A1. I, my neighbors, and future generations will be forever grateful for your present and continued actions to protect our beautiful Buckingham County. Thank you. The next one comes from Robert Day at 3337 Woodland Church Road here in Buckingham. It is difficult to know how or when terms in our zoning codes were defined or what they have come to represent in an assumed fashion. The word mining was originally thought of as simply extracting something from the ground. Today, however, with the advent of chemical extraction of minerals from ore frequently associated with the physical mining operation, things take on different meaning. An isolated hole in the ground dug by a prospector is greatly different from an industrial operation running around the clock, heavy machinery, and the associated water table disturbance and pollution that accompanies it. The recent assault on land near my home in the form of test bores is unsettling at best. Done in secret like commandos landing on a beach at midnight, they have gathered their information and are looking to assault the land with a force that will bring great destruction to the quality of life and water availability and quality. This mining term should have never been included in our A1 code and was never intended to open the door for such a large-scale operation as the gold mining that may soon be applying for a special use permit. As such, it is the duty of the county to protect the citizens from this sort of attack by totally eliminating the term from the A1 code, which was intended to protect this zone from such physical and chemical industrial scale operations like the proposed gold mine.
Good evening. My name is Swami Dayananda, living on Warminster Church Road in District 5. This comment is for November 23, this evening's Planning Commissioners meeting. I was very encouraged by November 16 work session between the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commissioners. I thank them, and I also thank Board of Supervisors for instructing the Planning Commission to look into and recommending the Board to remove mining from A1 and AC zones and to have a public hearing about that. Today, I would like to respond to two aspects presented to you on November 6th meeting by some experts on core drilling and gold mining. It was said that core drilling is a separate issue from the mining and that the chance of mining happening after core drilling is 5% normally, plus that it would take many years for mining to begin if it were to happen. For those of us who will be directly impacted, to say it's separate from mining does not reassure us, because in order to mine for gold, core drilling has to be done. It's separate when it comes to regulation and the regulatory process, I understand. It's not separate when it comes to the purpose of a core drilling, which is to see if there is enough gold. Core drilling for gold and potential gold mining is closely related. Since the gold mining company is already advertising and inviting investors according to the result of the core drilling, it would be a hard argument to support that core drilling is separate from mining. About 5% chance of gold mining happening, and that even that happens, it won't be for many years. What does that 5% mean to us? Living in Buckingham County now for almost 40 years, I have set my roots here and wish to live out the rest of my life in this beautiful rural setting that offers the environment for healthy living, and leave the land for the next generation to continue having clean water and air to grow medicinal herbs for decades to come. Hearing that it's only 5% chance does not reassure me, especially seeing how the mining company is enthusiastic on the perspective and have already spent great deals of money setting up organizations to follow up aggressively. Through ACP pipeline and now the gold mining work, I have met some of my wonderful neighbors whose families have been in this county for generations. Their ancestors worked hard, got lands, built homes, and left what they best could pass on to next generations. These are people of different races, white, black, natives, and others united with the same concern for the future of their land, hard-won land, homes, and living. I ask planning commissioners to continue their good work to protect us, the citizens of Buckingham, and preserve the rural, agricultural, healthy environment that all of us enjoy by living in Buckingham. Thank you so very much for your continued service.
Hello, this is Cassandra Stish, calling to leave public comment for the Planning Commission meeting being held on November 23rd, 2020. I live in the 5th District, 3098 Sycamore Creek Road. I am calling to thank the Planning Commission for taking up the subject of removing mining activities from the A1 in our planning ordinance, as is specifically, really, outlined in our comprehensive plan. It's great work that you're doing to be able to make sure that our A1 district is preserved for the lifestyle that we so dearly love and cherish here in Buckingham, and that we protect our natural resources as is also expressed in our comprehensive plan in the A1. We have some wonderful industrial zones. We have a lot of different solutions to help industry and businesses thrive and grow in our county. I would also turn the planning commissioners to the corridor plans as part of the comprehensive plan aside from the A1. The proposed mining industry activity would take place right along 56, which is one of our entrance corridors to the county and nearby the James River. I think this would be a detriment to the intention of those corridor plans. Thank you for your consideration. I appreciate you doing this hard work. Have a lovely evening.
Hello, this is Julie Quillen calling regarding core drilling and potential gold mining. I live in the James River District at 4484 Warminster Church Road. Good evening, Planning Commission. So I am calling this evening to elaborate on my beautiful memories growing up playing in Sycamore Creek as a child, or to share a sob story about how open pit gold mining would threaten my family's land or the well-being of my future children, because I've already done that. I'm writing to urge you all to follow the Board of Supervisors' recommendation to remove mining and quarrying from the A1 agricultural zone and to stick to Buckingham's comprehensive plan. Let me remind you, Buckingham's comprehensive plan aims to protect rural, agricultural, and forestry areas and natural resources to ensure that a rural quality of life is maintained. It also states, and I quote, protecting and preserving farmland, forest uses, livestock operations, wetlands, significant wildlife habitats, and water resources are of primary importance to these areas. Mining and quarrying have no business in the A1 agricultural district. As outlined in your zoning ordinance handbook, the purpose of the A1 agricultural district is listed as follows: preserving farm and forest lands, conserving water and other natural resources, reducing soil erosion, preventing water pollution, protecting watersheds, and reducing hazards from flood and fire. Additionally, your own zoning ordinance handbook states that the purpose of zoning ordinances are to, quote, create land use regulations which shall encourage the realization and implementation of the comprehensive plan. This is an opportunity to make a change in the zoning ordinance that is not only consistent with your comprehensive plan, but one that reflects integrity and respect for residents of this county and for Buckingham's natural resources. Please do the right thing. Follow the lead of the Board of Supervisors and remove mining and quarrying from the A1 agricultural zone and protect the rural quality of life of this county. This is an opportunity for you to listen to the concerns of the residents who you represent. This is a chance for you to demonstrate that your actions are aligned with your own comprehensive plan, which is the vision that you all developed and that you all publicly promote. Thank you for your consideration and for your time.
Hello, excuse me. Hello, my name is Chad Oba. I'm in District 6, and this is a comment as part of the public comment period during the Planning Commission meeting. Again, I'm commenting on the possibility of gold mining due to the core drilling that has occurred excuse me, already in the county. Much of the concern is around water. We know that public water is not available in much of the county. Residents rely on groundwater from wells, and the availability of that groundwater is a significant factor in the planning of land use for the county. And this is in your own comprehensive plan. And also in the comprehensive plan, I'm reading this today. It's not the first time I've read it. The land use undermining clearly states that care should continue to be taken to ensure that the conflicting land use, and i.e. this would be core drilling and gold mining, be minimized. And I would say eliminated, because it's not according to the land use in A1 or A3 for this type of mining or core drilling to take place. And as you know, core drilling is already prohibited. There was a point in 2014, I believe, when I took part in 4 community meetings where we were asked what we wanted to preserve, add, remove, or kept out of Buckingham. And I remember there was a large group of young people involved with this, and I was so encouraged and inspired by their participation. And I think that really, that looking to the future of Buckingham and keeping in mind these young people who are probably not so young anymore, it was a number of years ago, who may even have some children of their own now, that some of the things that they came up with need to be honored and respected. I mean, we have a wonderful comprehensive plan, but I want to specifically go to under land use. The goal was to guide future development into an efficient and serviceable form that is protective of the county's overall rural character. And then there were objectives under that to guide future development into an efficient and serviceable form that is protective of the county's overall rural character. And I think I'm going to run out of time here, but another objective was through effective zoning and strategic planning, regulate future development to protect existing land patterns within Buckingham County. Another objective, protect existing and planned uses from the encroachment of incompatible land use. I certainly would think that this drilling and mining, possible mining, is an incompatible land use in A1, where they've done this prohibited land core drilling. The point being, please pay attention to our own comprehensive plan, a plan that I had minimal part in establishing. And please read it and abide by it. It's so important for our future and the future of the young people here to protect our resources. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say. Please read your comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Rinaldi. I live in District 5 on Warminster Church Road, calling to make comments for tonight's meeting, November 23rd, the Planning Commission meeting. I just wanted to say, I know that the meeting tonight is not meant to resolve the issues that we face regarding core drilling and a potential gold mine. I know that the Planning Commission has already heard from countless citizens regarding this issue, and all of them are gravely concerned. But what I want you to hear tonight is a genuine and heartfelt request to really consider what your role is in this. Some of you have implied that core drilling for commercial use will bring jobs and revenue to the county, but in that same breath, you say that drilling doesn't always lead to mining. If that's the case, then what jobs and revenue are you referring to? Aston Bay's core drilling hasn't provided any jobs or revenue to the county. And if you truly believe it won't lead to a mine, then you can't argue that their activity here is in any way good for the community. Some of you have also stated that you hope Aston Bay does find gold, and that you hope they open a mine. I have to assume you think this would also bring jobs and revenue to the community. But we in the community have done extensive research on this. Some of our community members have even traveled to South Carolina to find out what actually happens to a community when a company shows up and starts digging for gold. The communities in which these open pit mines have been dug are not prosperous. They aren't reaping any extra revenue. They're not experiencing an influx of jobs. Instead, their residents have been run out of town, their water has been poisoned, and their economy has suffered. There are countless cyanide ponds, some as large as 600 acres in these communities. Here in Buckingham, I live only a mile from Aston Bay's current exploration area. I don't have to imagine what this threat feels like because I live it every day. Every time I fill a glass of water at the sink, I wonder how much longer it will be safe. Every time my dog runs through a stream, I worry what that water would do to him if cyanide ponds are less than a mile away. And every time I enjoy the smell of an autumn forest, I wonder what will happen to my lungs, my brain, my heart if an open pit mine is allowed to contaminate that air. I want to thank you for planning a public hearing to discuss removing mining from A1 and AC. I also would like to suggest that as you discuss core sampling in A1 zones, you consider that you have the ability to limit the type of core sampling permitted. As you discuss the development of a questionnaire and requiring landowners to fill it out, why not also discuss prohibiting core sampling for precious metals exploration? That would protect the community from businesses like Aston Bay and other gold companies while allowing for the other forms of core sampling discussed at last week's meeting. Listen, we don't keep calling you because it's fun. We don't enjoy writing emails to you. We don't think it's exciting to attend your meetings. We continue to do these things because what we're saying is important. And we need you to listen. We need you to consider your role, your job. You're supposed to guide us into a better future using the comprehensive plan as your compass. That plan acknowledges the importance of our land, our water, and our safety. I beg you to acknowledge the same. I know you want to do what's best for this community. Please listen to what the community is telling you that we need. Thank you for your time, and have a good evening.
Good evening. My name is Heidi Benyabertu. I'm in the James River District. I want to thank you for taking up the issue of amending the A1 and AC zones to remove quarrying and mining. This would bring the zones into alliance with the existing description of the intention and purpose of these zones. It does not, however, prevent a harmful open pit gold mine from finding its way into our county. We have work to do. I want to also express my concerns for the process of how the prospects of gold mining in the county is being covered. I attended last Monday's November 16th meeting. What I saw was that the experts were invited by the county to speak specifically about exploratory drilling. I appreciate that this is a complicated affair and you were making attempts to help simplify and clarify. But to speak only to exploratory drilling is to take it out of the important larger context of what the drilling is for, specifically gold mining. To not speak about the impacts of gold mining is to distort the truth that we all need to look at very carefully. The experts themselves downplayed the dangers before us, saying that only 5% of explorations lead to actual mines. We don't want anywhere to be the 5% because we know how bad gold mining is. Furthermore, I see a conflict of interest for the experts that were invited. Our state geologist is in the business of regulating mining. Without mining, he would be out of a job. The other experts from DMME and Virginia Tech have similar conflicts of interest. They also did not hear our input and concerns. We would like you to hear from the experts we've reached out to. George Neal, a retired miner and reformer of the system, has written to you with his concerns. Have you read his input sent on November 10th? You have been advised by Aaron Minsis of Earthworks, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting communities and the environment from the adverse impacts of mineral and energy development, while promoting sustainable solutions and corporate accountability. Would you be willing to have them speak to you? Would you be willing to visit Earthworks' website to learn from their years of experience? Will you also be taking up the issue of finding the companies that did this prohibited exploratory drilling? $2,500 per day per violation is allowed by Article 6 of the zoning code. Is that enough? Who will take responsibility for overseeing that the drill holes are closed up properly and recorded with the county, where they are located, when they were started and finished, how much water was used for drilling, where the sampling went, what chemicals were used, etc.? And this is awkward, but our own state geologist and native son knew the drilling was happening and never informed you. What reckoning will happen around that irresponsibility? I appreciate the difficulties of your job. I thank you for taking a careful look at these important and impactful problems and acting appropriately. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
That it?
public comment, yes, sir.
Old business.
Tonight, we have a public hearing for case 20 ZMA 280. In the packet, you'll notice that the landowner information has been updated. Mr. Byler is now the landowner of tax map 151-15 at 115 Acre Point Lane. And those recorded documents are at the end of his packet information. Once again, just to give you a brief overview prior to the public hearing, it is tax map 151 parcel 15. This particular section contains 20 acres of the original 67.76 and the Watson and Dugan plat dated 9/26/2018 and approved for recordation 10/2/2020. It's currently in A1. Mr. Byler's request for this zoning map amendment is to ask the Planning Commission, of course recommending the public hearing date, which you're doing tonight, to rezone from agriculture A1 to business B1 for the purpose of operating his business on this main corridor, which is Route 60. Mr. Byler, I have noticed, must not have been able to attend tonight, but it was his intent when I spoke with him last week. He, along with Mr. Jonathan King and Mr. John King, are not here to answer any questions this evening.
Okay, thank you.
And we do have one signed up for this public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's hear it.
That's David Ball.
Okay.
Did you, we'll need you to open the public hearing as well.
Pardon me?
If you would open the public hearing prior to
Okay.
allowing him to speak.
We're opening the public hearing for this case.
Good evening, David Ball, District 3. I would say that this proposal seems reasonable. The only concern that I would express is that there is already an existing store in operation by the Amish down at Jason Meek's new real estate office on the southern end of the county, and it's only a few miles north of that location. I don't know if there's an intent to move that location from Jason Meek's property up there, or if they want to try and compete, or how that's going to work, if it's going to adversely affect an already existing business, or if it's going to actually increase or provide a different service or provide different resources that aren't currently available at the existing store now. That's only my concern. But other than that, there should be no reason not to support it.
Thank you, sir. Close the public hearing. Would you care to explain to us why there's no conditions?
There are no conditions. This is a zoning map amendment. This is not a special use permit. Conditions are placed on a special use permit, but when you rezone a case, there are no conditions listed for a zoning map amendment.
Hope y'all are all listening to that. We have no way of conditioning this. Any of the commissioners have anything to say about it? About this case? What do you think we ought to do?
Never heard of a case where we didn't have conditions.
It would also
After-
apply to gold mines if things were changed.
This, after review with our county attorney, other cases that were zoning map amendments that had conditions, they should not have been there. You would be actually changing this to the zone that is requested. If you don't wish to rezone this, you know, that vote belongs to the 5 of you sitting here tonight, but there are no conditions placed on a rezone. In the last case of Mr. Vaughn, there were no conditions for Mr. Vaughn. Those were listed in error and was notated on the documentation, but there are no conditions for a rezone. This is not a special use permit.
Anybody have any discussion?
I do.
Okay.
My only concern is that it's a straight stretch and where they want the stores, but it's a hill before you get there. And the 45 mile an hour speed limit then goes up to 55. And I feel like that maybe with a lot of Amish buggy vehicles, that it should maybe be presented to VDOT to consider a 45 mile an hour zone past where they are.
Good thought.
VDOT has visited the site with Mr. Byler to ensure site distance and also the suggestion of no more than 2 entrances to allow for Mr. Ball. I'll go ahead and actually address your concern and your public comment. In this introduction and the public hearing information, if you would notate on that first page, it says that they intend to relocate Spring Hollow Market from Route 15 to Route 60. It will be housed in one of these buildings should this move forward. Not only did VDOT attend, actually visit that site and work with all 3 of those presented in this case, Mr. Byler, Jonathan King, and John Byler, our very own Lynn Hill was sent there as well for questions regarding site development. So they have been visited by VDOT, and I'm sure if there's any additional concern, once they are open to change that speed limit, and there are any issues that would need to be addressed at that point.
I just would like that on the record because I had visited the Amish community market in the other county and know that sometimes there is a lot of traffic. I feel like we need to be proactive rather than reactive about that.
Okay, he's asking that we set a date for his public hearing. In his absence, I think we can still do that, can't we?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is his public hearing.
This is a public.
You had an
Okay.
introduction last month.
Yeah. This is moving it on to the Board of Supervisors.
Well, to do that, we need a motion.
I would be glad to entertain a motion with my recommendation attached, that we move it on to the Board of Supervisors, and maybe they could address that properly.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Been first and seconded. We'll take a vote. Is there any discussion? Vote. All in favor? Unanimous. So that's gone. That's done.
Just that they entertained that idea. Then I just pray for their safety.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is going to be the, consider the questionnaire for core sampling commercial in A1 agricultural. Anybody want to start?
Is Mr. Wright available? Because last week when they were discussing this, I think this was a form that was going to be designed by Mr. Wright and Mr. Bigford. This is the questionnaire for that. Because
Right. That was my understanding when it was proposed that Supervisor Brown asked us, me and to be the point person with Mr. Wright.
want to sit here at one of these desks?
My first question, I assume, Mr. Wright, is whether we have, the county has the legal authority to ask the landowner to come in and answer questions on the questionnaire.
I think we go back to the response that I gave when Mr. Allen was inquiring about the registration part of it. I believe we're gonna have.
I don't think they can hear you. No.
No.
No, no better.
Any better now?
Yeah. Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
The question goes back to what the response that I gave to Mr. Allen, basically in the memorandum to the Planning Commission, that to require somebody to specifically come in and register for an activity is, I don't find any grounding in the Code of Virginia to allow that. You can require businesses to come in and register if you do it across the board, but as far as targeting one individual business to come in and say, you gotta come in and sign up, I think you're gonna have difficulty doing that.
Okay. If we didn't create a register but just a questionnaire form, would,
What-
still not gonna do it?
How do you enforce it? If the people say, I'm not gonna fill it out, what's the enforcement mechanism? If you don't have the authority, you can create the questionnaire and make it on a voluntary basis. But if you don't have the authority to say, if you don't come and do it, there's a penalty associated with it, then you're basically relying on somebody's civic cooperation to gather that. Now, you can create the questionnaires and you can say, please come in and do this if you're going to do these activities. But there's no enforcement mechanism or insurance mechanism should you find out that the activity is going on and they didn't respond to the questionnaire.
Okay. Well, if that's the situation, unless we go with that, then we're back to where we started. Because I know some were concerned that they, know exactly what was going on, as much information they could give it. And if you are relying on the public to do that with no, as Mr. Wright has indicated, with no enforcement, then it is voluntary. And that may suffice for some landowners, and others may take a position that they don't want anybody to know what they're doing.
How would we stand with maybe using a special use permit?
If you require a special use permit, then you'll know the details.
Your special use permit would give you the ability to say you've got to have a special use permit to do this activity. And then coming in and applying for the special use permit, you can get certain information and require them to give you certain information if they want to get the special use permit, and then you can condition other things the way they go about the activity in the special use permit. That can be done.
You understand now, if you require a special use permit, every time a company enters into a lease or agreement, they'll have to do another special use permit. So it'll be repeated, which is, it's just as long as you understand that process, that it would have to be, if I'm right, Mr. Wright, it'll require every time a lease is entered into that it be in special use?
If in the A1 district, somebody wants to come in and do commercial prospecting,
Right.
then yes, on that piece of property,
Right.
if it's a different entity or otherwise, technically the special use permit would probably reside with the landowner. And he contracts out in his lease and has that permit. So as long as you're probably playing with the same landowner, you might be okay. He might be able to change companies, but they would have to assume whatever conditions were imposed. But if you get a different company, different landowner, yes.
Okay.
Each time
Each
the merry-go-round goes around.
Right.
But just because they come in to ask for a special use permit does not guarantee the approval of a special use permit, right?
Right. No, you have, we, planning commission as well as.
I just want everybody to
the board.
understand, we're not a rubber stamp.
Correct, yeah. It's just that it would be every time they entered into a lease, they would have to get a special use permit.
And also, there's been a different reference tonight for commercial prospecting. It's been called commercial core sampling. So are we taking a different direction?
I don't know whether it's a different direction or not. You know, I've always talked in terms of commercial prospecting is what I've talked about.
We've
The
had
discussion
commercial core
was been about
sampling.
commercial drilling. And the other thing you need to understand, there was a lot of concern about whether VDOT or you drill your well or those types of things. There's a doctrine in zoning known as an ancillary or accessory use. In other words, if you have an underlying use for that property that complies with the zoning of that piece of property, there are certain things that you can do because it's anticipated that those are associated with that use. I can't make the leap from mineral prospecting to associated with any uses provided for in A1. So that's why I have advised that I think the commercial prospecting is not allowed. If you're building a barn, building a house, you might want to know a little bit about the foundation. To find out about the foundation and the soil and the things of that, you could probably make a very legitimate argument that an accessory use would allow you to find out the soil that you could build your barn or your house on, or your silo or whatever. So when we talk about commercial prospecting and drilling for minerals, it's a little bit different from some of the other drilling that got woven into the conversation last week.
Okay.
Did that cover what you had in mind, Ms. Edmondson?
No, the only issue I have is that since June, July, this has been called commercial core sampling. So if we're going to call it something different now, I just want to make sure that I update what the reference.
I think most of the items that I've talked about can move back and forth, but commercial core sampling could take on another definition from core sampling for minerals and that type of thing. So I think the commission in dealing with it and recommendations to the board would want to really narrowly define what you are talking about so you don't catch too many fish in your net that you don't intend to catch.
So is this commercial prospecting?
I don't, that's just what I refer to it as. Because there are hobbyists who go out and pan gold and they usually don't drill, though people suggest there are further operations of sloughs and otherwise that involve water, you know, I think you need to decide on what activity you want to capture and define it as narrowly and as specifically as you can. But the special use permit, Mr. Bowe, would be a way to keep tabs on the activity. If you-
Keep
to-
tab
to
on
get
the
the
activities.
information, and if you decided to approve it, and Ms. Gormless is quite right, it's not an automatic, but if you decide to approve it, you got activity, you can keep track of the activity.
You know, this is a very complex subject here. And I'm not sure that the audience realizes what's at stake here. 95% of this county is zoned agricultural. So whatever it is we do is going to affect 95% of the land mass in this county. It's a rather big decision to be made, especially on some of the comments that have been made that are just downright not true.
Mr. Chairman, in light of my suggestion being not feasible, creating a questionnaire, and it looks like our other option is for control, or at least getting the information that the county wants, a special use permit. Would it be feasible to table this to get some more information so we can make a better vetted decision?
I personally think that's a great idea. Do you have any thoughts down here?
Are you
Anybody
making-
else?
Are you making that a motion? Because
Well, I was just asking for what if the other board members felt the same way I did. I feel like I was thinking of the questionnaire might resolve the issue for the county because of, we're just, at this point, we're only addressing the core sampling, which by all the experts last Monday, mostly isn't regulated because it isn't that intrusive. Now, it varies, there's other opinions on that. But because we can't do the questionnaire, we're back without a solution to this problem. So I'd like to get some more information before I make a decision to go as far as requiring every time someone in the county enters into a lease agreement with a mining company just to do core sample to see if they actually even have something on their property, and if they do, is it enough quantity to even start a mining operation? I mean, these things are multi-million-dollar projects. That's why you only have 5% of them ever turn into an active mine, and it's over so many years because you think about it, it's got to be a very large deposit of a valuable asset to justify all the expense if you go to that large scale. So I'd like to try to get a little bit more information just to make a more educated decision.
I agree with Mr. Bickford, and I want the audience and everybody else to know, we take our job seriously, and we try to all be educated about what we are doing, and this is no light decision. So I think I'm with Mr. Bickford, and we need to have more time on this one.
Is that a motion, Johnny?
I'll make that a formal motion to table this until we can get further information.
All right, I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, so we will take the time. Before y'all leave, maybe we ought to just talk about things a little bit. As I understand it, the motion that was to come up tonight about removing it from the A1 district, that sounds real good on the surface. Problem solved. No, not happening. As long as this thing is under the SUP, we can condition it. Now, if we go back to the Dominion case, And y'all were basically the same audience that didn't want that approved. But when Dominion left this operation here, they had 34 conditions attached to them, all for y'all's benefit. Without it being in the agricultural district and requiring an SUP, the only play left for the people is to apply for a zoning change. No conditions. Is that what you really want? Think about that one. It's not as simple as you might think. Those 34 conditions were going to cost Dominion millions of dollars in y'all's benefits. I don't mind having a discussion. I mean, do you have something to add? Please come up and add it.
It's not on the agenda.
No, it's not on the agenda. But I think we can just make an exception and talk about it.
Thank you. So how about just saying that there won't be any mining in Buckingham? Can you do that for
I don't
future?
think you can. No, I don't think you can do that. I think you'd have lawsuits coming at you left and right. People have property rights. They buy property. Rights are associated with that property.
And people have a right to survive and thrive, and if you're going to do things that are going to impinge on that, then that should be illegal.
Well, I think we had all kinds of experts here. You might not want to recognize them as experts, but they were certainly people that all worked for the state of Virginia.
Have you heard from anybody outside of the state of Virginia?
Yes.
Such as?
Pardon me?
Who is that?
Weyerhaeuser for one of them, the owner of the property.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
do have rights.
Exactly. I would recommend that you get some more information, as has been mentioned tonight. This is a big topic, and we're not trying to destroy Buckingham. We're trying to create a sustainable future here, not one that's going to look like what they saw in South Carolina.
You are looking for the negatives, you will find negatives. You know, I looked it up myself. Do you even know who owns the gold mine down there? Oceana Gold. Yes, you're right. Did you look what they do for that county?
I tried to find it.
Well, it's not hard to find. It's right there in the internet.
No, I went down there, sir, twice. I lived down there for like four or 5 days.
Okay.
I talked to people.
We got it.
Have you ever seen a large open pit gold mine, sir?
Have I ever seen a what?
Have you ever seen a large open pit gold mine, sir?
Only the pictures that were on the internet.
You've never driven around it, you never talked to the residents who are affected by it. Well, guess what? The residents near the mine, they're all gone. The houses are gone. The mine buys up all the land, and they level the houses. So there goes a big chunk of your real estate taxes.
But it's being replaced.
How?
Number one, in the real world, people sell houses not to take a loss. They sell them for a profit.
Well,
When gold mines are buying up property, they're giving them top dollar.
right, but then they level the houses, and then
So what?
It's
It's theirs.
well, right, exactly. But then you're destroying a large part of your tax revenue. There's no more real estate there. It's
That's
just
like
empty
saying
land.
that when they dig the hole in the earth, they're destroying the trees. You know, it's one thing's more valuable than the other.
Right.
And it's the property owner's decision as to what that is.
Right, okay, all right. Well, Hale Mine touts that, let me see, 89% of their employees live in the county.
Right.
Well, the motels that I stayed in, which were in Lancaster County, they weren't residents, they were all out-of-state contractors. There for a couple weeks, maybe a month, running cables, digging cyanide pits.
What about the 600 employees they have? They live out of county?
They live in the county, but they live in motels. They're not residents. They're transients, and they all come and go. The Hale Mine paints a pretty picture about, hey, you know, all of our employees, they boost the economy by X amount of millions of dollars, and they volunteer their time and yada yada yada, you know. But the gold mine doesn't give anything to the community.
One that's been closed properly?
Not yet.
Do you have faith in your county or your state of Virginia?
As far as open pit mining, no.
No, of course, no. Of closing them.
Oh, closing them?
Yeah.
Well, you see, typically the gold mining company puts up a bond for environmental disasters, which usually happen with the cyanide ponds, the waste lagoons. And then what ends up happening is the mining company declares bankruptcy, leaves, forfeits the bond, and then the cleanup is on the taxpayer's dime. You can't clean up a 600-acre cyanide pond.
Yeah, and if the bond is big enough.
It's going to be there forever. Well, you see though, but I talked to one guy at the motel, and his job is building the cyanide pools. And as the mine expands, they build more and more and more, and they're just everywhere. And as they find new veins of gold using modern technology, okay, I mean, Buckingham, all of its gold mines were back in the 1800s, and we're talking a pick and a mule technology, chasing the vein. Now they can x-ray the earth and find veins, but their specialty is the Hale Mine was an old defunct mine. It's called a brownfield, and they thought that all the gold was gone, but with the technology they have now, they actually look at these brownfields. And Buckingham is full of brownfields. So the deal is, once they get a toehold in the county, they expand and they expand and they expand, okay? And so they're going to be going into Andersonville and all these old mines where back in the 1800s, the technology didn't allow them to go any deeper. And then the gold rush of 1848 happened, and then the Civil War happened, and then everything shut down. But now they're looking at a big part of the county to come in to these old brownfields and start mining again. So it's just not going to stay up near Wingina. Once they start there, they're just going to expand. And as they expand, they knock on people's doors and say, we want to buy your property. And they give a good price, but then they level the houses and start storing acidic rock and dump trucks, you know, on the property. You know, they actually create like a buffer around the mine as they expand. And so all around the mine, you won't see any houses, just empty driveways that go nowhere to overgrown house sites. That's what I've seen down there. And the town is defunct. It reminds me a lot of Dillwyn, and the area reminds me of Buckingham. But I talked to the fire chief. I said, look, you know, you guys are so close to the mine, in case of there's an emergency, you know, you guys are going to be first responders. What has the mine donated or given to the firehouse? And the fire chief said just a laptop, and only because they had to request it, because since they're going to be first responders to this mining operation, they had to be tied into a whole new database of mining regulations and everything else.
Right.
Okay, and I asked if any, I figured, okay, mining company, they're going to donate like new wings to the school and stuff. And no, it doesn't happen. Okay, the library. My wife works at the library, and she asked me to go and see the library. Well, the library is next to a county administration building, and behind that is a temporary mine training center. Well, the mine wants the administration building and the library building for their new training center. And in exchange, the mine is building a new EMS station right next to the mine. So it's all in their interests. And as far as the new library goes, the residents had to vote for a tax increase to fund a new library, which is going into an old shut-down Wells Fargo bank branch, which is smaller than the current library. So they're not getting anything out of this.
Okay, I think, appreciate what you had to say.
Okay.
Maybe you've used more than your time.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. I think the geologist maybe wanted to say something. Sure, go ahead.
I wonder, don't you all feel some sort of responsibility to the environment? It looks like, to me, y'all never protected the people of Union Hill to the utmost with the compressor station. You could have gone much more. And are you going to listen to a community group? Are you going to involve people from the community in any of your or anything? I remember at the for the compressor station, citizens could absolutely not sit in any of your secret meetings.
Maria, come on.
But
we don't have secret meetings.
Well, you did because you wouldn't allow the citizens. But I believe, our first responsibility is to our people and to the environment. You don't think that? I think whatever these big companies do, if they don't spoil the environment or poison people, that's okay. But I don't see gold mining as something that's not harmful. Okay, enough. I'm not myself today. I got hit in the head this afternoon with an autumn leaf, so I'm a little bit off track. Thank you.
I have to say something first. You can't do away with mining in the county because you already have a mine, Cyanide, and they have an ancillary company, and they own thousands of acres here in the county. So you're not going to see mining stopped because it already is here. And they have claims that they haven't even touched. And the years that they expect that they're going to be mining in this county is going to be a long time. And they're one of the top job producers here. So you're not going to get rid of mining. The question is what types of mining, how you're going to regulate it, how it's going to be managed, and how you're going to deal with it. Now, from what I understand, Jack Forks Holdings had 1 million acres of land in Virginia. I've been trying to substantiate that information, but it takes up a vast majority of Buckingham County and some of the surrounding counties to Buckingham. So that company sold it to another company, and I sent Nikki the article for 2018 that shows that this Canadian company bought that their property, their holdings. So they now own the holdings that Jack's Fork used to hold. Now, the question is how extensive, how far, and yes, there is gold. You can go from Georgia all the way up to New England, and there's gold all throughout there. It's part of the geology, how it was created, what was formed. And if you want to look at the mining that existed in this county, this was the first county in the colonies that had a gold mine. The King of England mined gold up until the Revolution kicked England out. And that mine stopped. Later on, other mining operations did kick up. There's a long history of gold mining here in the county. And yes, I'm part of one of these gold prospecting groups. I'm also part of a national group. And I've worked in mines. Well, let's say quarries. Not so much underground mines, but I've worked in quarries. So I know what goes on there. I've worked there as a state employee, overseeing and looking at the operations there. So I know what's involved. But this is going to be a long-term process. And it's not like there's going to be a massive pit immediately. It takes time. And most of the quarries that you see in functions here in Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, might be 100 feet to 300, 400, 500 feet deep. But you go out west, those gold mining operations, they can get 1,000 feet or deeper. And that area, because they have to bench every terrace for safety, it's going to expand outward and outward and outward. And you have to say, what's the limits? How is it going to impact everything? And that's just the mining operation. You don't look at the processing of the material, whether they're going to do it here. I know there was a big brouhaha for years about just south of here, Pittsylvania County. They were looking at putting up a uranium mine. That created a big stink. All these different groups. I was a soil and water director. I wasn't in favor of it, but they put together a moratorium statement that they supported and said, we don't want uranium mining in Virginia. So, yeah, there are groups that are for and against. And the question is, how are you going to do something that is a legal right to do? And how are you going to do it so that it doesn't hurt other people who it doesn't impact? But there's always going to be winners and losers. Unfortunately, that's a sad reality of life. Now the question is, to what extent, and this Ashton Bay, they have a modus that they operate. They go, they do the initial exploration, they establish whether it's a viable operation, and then they sell it off to another company, which they can get the profits from, but they don't hold any of the liability. And that third company that comes in and steps in, they're the ones that do the work, make the mess. And that's, that's what people talked about with the pipeline. The companies that were contracted to do the install, if you look at the Mountain Valley pipeline, that's plagued with disasters because they're not doing what they're supposed to. And the state's having a hard time keeping up with it. And it's just creating a bigger disaster. And of course, this year was an even harder year because, well, we had an excessive amount of rain. We had a pretty much excessive amount of rain last year, too. Whereas a few years ago, we weren't getting as much rain. So these things change, variables shift. There's a lot to consider. I mean, this is not going to be a snap judgment, we're going to do this and run with it. You have to have a lot of thought. You have to have a lot of planning, a lot of consideration in order to decide how it's going to happen, what's going to happen, and strategically this is all going to have to work out. Whether it even happens, we don't know. Because, I've seen some of these old mining claims. I've worked in some of these old mining claims here, and I know what's out there. I know what's around the county. I've explored. So I know what's here. It's just a matter of what's actually going to happen. And so I think important question is, where is this 1,000,000 acres? I want to see the 1,000,000 acres. I want to see their mineral deed that shows that they own the mineral rights for this 1,000,000 acres. I mean, is this a fallacy? Is this a reality? I think, there needs to be investigation. You have to start digging in and getting the facts. And once you have the facts, deciding what's the best way to progress. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you.
I'd just like to speak to the comment about cyanide ponds. And now, I'm no process engineer, I'm just a geologist, but it is my understanding that the reason why they use cyanide today is because cyanide breaks down, denatures in the sunlight, and a cyanide pond in a matter of about 30 days, just for the most part, just turns into clean water. Another comment I had is that the Hale gold mine was discovered in 1828 and has been in more or less continuous operation and production since that time, with only a few hiatuses. So, I mean, it's grown to be pretty big. I mean, it's a pretty big mine. I just say that, the state of Virginia and the DMME, DGMR, and the federal agencies involved in this, they do a good job, and they wouldn't, they don't regulate things that don't need regulating. And here in the U.S., we mine cleaner than they do anywhere in the world. I mean, in some other countries, they still use mercury for gold processing, so I would stand behind that we do as good a job as anyone in the world and better. And it's our striving to better our technology that has brought us here today. I wouldn't. I'm thankful for all the environmental regulations that we do have, because that means that we do a good job. I guess that's about all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lanham, you want to say something?
Yep, thank you for acknowledging me. My name's Rob Lanham. I'm with the Virginia Transportation Construction Alliance. Our association represents the highway construction industry in Virginia, and one of our membership segments is the aggregate producers. By far and away, aggregate mining, metal, non-metal it's called, in Virginia is the largest mining segment in Virginia. I think in 2019, 69 million tons of aggregate was mined in Virginia. Our members mine 67 million of it, so we represent the lion's share of mining in Virginia. One thing I want to caution you on is when you say mining, we're all grouped into that category. Every mining is different. The geologist, you can attest to that gold mining is different from copper mining, is different from coal mining. So be cognizant of those differences in mining. Again, our mining is the local quarry where you go get your gravel for your driveway. If you don't have any local, the cost for your gravel in your driveway is going to go up. We are a very low-cost product with a high product to transportation cost ratio. If you truck if a ton of gravel for your driveway costs $10 or $12 a ton, if you're going to truck it 20 miles, you better add $7 to the cost of that. So just caution you that when you outlaw mining, you're outlawing all of it.
I would assume that core drilling falls into the same.
Absolutely,
problem.
absolutely. Core drilling is essential. The average startup cost for an aggregate mine is $10 million before you put the first ton out to market. So somebody's going to spend $10 million acquiring land, explorating, permitting, and then doing the actual work once all of those are completed. And the core drilling is essential. Again, we're very local business. You have one aggregate mine, two aggregate mines, I believe, here in Buckingham County, both up in the north end. But you get to some other counties in Virginia, there's 5, 6 quarries in the county. It's very competitive. The consumer makes out in those situations. So aggregate operators are very defensive of their market share. So confidentiality in core drilling is extremely important, because if Company A has a quarry and they have a good market and they're charging a good price, Company B says, hey, we can come into that market and we can make a living too. They're going to drive the price down. But as soon as it is known that Company B is prospecting, Company A does maneuvers to block and to try to keep the competition out. That happens in every industry, not just mining, but it's every industry. So confidentiality in core drilling is important. And you know, I see what you guys have here in Buckingham County and a host of surrounding counties that I could find, is that mining is permitted in agricultural zones with a special use permit. That gives you the most control of you, the county, regulating the mines. The quarries, the mines have to go through the state process to make sure that their reclamation is correct. And to answer somebody's question, that mining companies have to post a reclamation bond with DMME, that they have to renew that bond and that permit every 2 years, and to show that they're still on that reclamation plan for when they close the mine out. So that addresses the issue of abandoning on a mine. There's an insurance policy that if a company walks away, there's an insurance company, surety company there to pay to close the mine. But getting back to the core drilling, you know, nobody's going to spend $10 million on something that they don't know is not in the ground. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. One of our members is here, and he's got an extensive background in processing, has worked in coal mining industry as well as aggregate mining. So if you have any questions for us, for him, we'll be happy to answer them. And we'll be happy to help you get information as you move forward on this process.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, I'm gonna call a close to this semi-formal, informal session. We're gonna move on to
Number 6.
consider resignation of Planning Commission member Chet Maxey.
Mr. Bowe, if we could for just a moment, the last item that you were discussing was the questionnaire for core sampling, and I know that Mr. Bickford made the motion to table this, and with a second by Ms. Gormas, to have more information before moving forward. Does that include item number 2 under old business as well?
Yes.
So item 2 and 3, both you're going to would like to consider more information.
Yes.
Thank you.
Isn't that your intent, Johnny?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Because just to piggyback on a couple of our speakers here, to piggyback on a couple of our speakers that came up in our informal public hearing, you know, there is different types of mining. Most of the objections that had been voiced tonight and the other session we had a month ago now, excuse me, are basically referring to gold mining. And as the gentleman said, we have 2 slate quarries in the north end of the county, and we have kyanite. And, you know, if you paint with a broad brush, you eliminate everything. So I think we really need to get as much information as possible to, if necessary, separate or try to do some type of separation of these mines and their potentials for damage to the environment versus just saying painting with a broad brush.
Okay, just to make sure, so that when we write up information to report to the board of what happened tonight, in regard to item 2 and 3,
Yes.
the motion is to get more information, not just on gold mining, but
All mines.
all types of mining.
Right.
Okay,
I
yes.
mean, of course, our emphasis would be on the existing mines that are now here, the aggregate, which this gentleman spoke about, slate quarries, and then the kyanite we've got, and of course also gold mining, because that seems to be the main issue with the public. But I do have to agree with Chairman Bowe that if the other alternate, if you do just, say no more mining in A1 and AC, then the other thing is a rezoning, and as we've seen tonight, you don't have any, you can't put any conditions on that if you rezone it, correct?
If you rezone it to an M2, as an M1, mining quarrying would be by way of an SUP.
I understand, but what I'm saying is if you.
M2, you're correct, Mr.
Right.
Bickford. There's no conditions for that.
Right, is that right,
rezoning.
Mr. Wright?
Yes, in other words, if you change it to another zone, it depends on whether it's a right by use in that zone or whether it's permitted use. And I
Correct.
think what Ms. Edmondson is pointing out, M2, you got a right to do it. M1, you have to have a special use permit.
Yes.
Okay. Now, that discussion came up in terms of the earlier hearing you had tonight. When you moved that to the zone that you moved it to, the schools were a permitted use in that deal, so you couldn't attach conditions to it.
I see. So in other words, if we had a application in the future
Mhm.
for rezoning, because we went through and said, no, we agreed, and there's no mines allowed in any of the A1 or AC. If we had an applicant come with a rezoning application for, say, Gravel Hill for 100 acres for, just for example, kyanite, because that vein does go from Willis Mountain to Gravel Hill. In that rezoning application, we could rezone, but we could put conditions on?
Depending on which zone you went to. If you went to M2, if I've got them right,
I see
there
what
would be
you're
no
saying.
condition. If you went to M1, and then they'd have to make application for a special use permit
Right.
to operate that mine in M1.
But if they applied for M2 and we granted it, then we could not put
You
any
wouldn't have
conditions on.
conditions because it'd be a
Okay.
by right use. Now, the state would still be involved because they regulate the mining. We regulate the use of the land.
Right. Thank you for the clarification. Right. Did you get all my answers, Nikki?
I think so. And then the only is, I'll take this back to the Board of Supervisors at their December meeting. Do you have any other suggestion for, this will just be at your next work session? You will, as a planning commission, hear more panel information in regard to the mining across the board?
I think the question, to rephrase it, would be, what other information do you want
Right.
staff to produce?
Well, it would probably be good to get as much as possible. I don't know if it would be in our best interest to have a joint meeting, work session with the Board of Supervisors and ask representatives of the mining, as we did before, last week.
Yes, sir.
And then we could ask questions of them. I'll be the first one to own up to I'm a novice at mining. I have that very limited information on that, especially when you start talking about different types of mines and the processes they have to extract the material from the ground. And that may not be anything you can do for the December meeting. It may have to go into January with the holidays.
Holiday season can make it tough.
Would it be possible to reconvene the same group you had before?
And that's going to be based upon their schedule. As Mr. Bickford said, none of them expressed anything but willingness to participate and answer questions. So I'm going to kind of go out on a limb and say that I believe that they would definitely serve as resources for us if it was permissible within their schedule.
Well, I think there was a lot that we never even got around to asking. Like, how do you close a mine? What
Sure.
is required, et cetera. So I think that would be helpful.
No, absolutely. The more information, the better.
Okay, then I'll work on reconvening the panel that we had and then add some other experts specific to kyanite, aggregates, gold mining. Is there anything else I should?
I know at one time there was some copper mining in the northern end of the county.
Okay.
Actually, it was on a piece of property that I know of, and it was in the 50s. Of course, now it was a small scale. It was not a large scale operation, but there was copper mining in that area, in Buckingham.
Okay.
Well, I'm not the chairman, Mr. Poe.
Make it quick, please. Okay, thank you. We're back to Chet Maxey.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Maxey has served on the Planning Commission for a number of years, and it has come to my attention this month that Mr. Maxey has chosen to resign his duties effective this month. He has spoken with his representative on the Board of Supervisors. He regrets that he has to resign at this time, but he does have some commitments that are keeping him from his responsibilities and fully serving. He did want me to reiterate to each of you that he has enjoyed working with each of you throughout the years. He understands the huge responsibility that the Planning Commission serves to the citizens of our county. And he does hope maybe to cross paths in the future again after things settle down for him a bit. But once again, I do thank him for his service, and we will make sure at your recommendation to place this with the Board of Supervisors. I know that Mr. Chambers is actively looking for someone to replace him. But we do thank him for all of his service here to Buckingham by way of the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Nikki. I'd like to echo that too, being chairman with Chet out on the Planning Commission. He was, I felt like he added a lot to the conversation, had a good take on a lot of the subjects. So I really appreciated his input and enjoyed working with him.
Absolutely. I'm sure he'll appreciate that.
Same thing, that he had a lot of special points of view that some of the rest of us didn't. Okay, reports.
So within your packet is the monthly building permits report. I myself, as zoning administrator, do not have anything further for you this month.
Mission matters.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a first and a second to adjourn. All in favor? We are adjourned.